Back to our course on conflict of interest for professionals. As this course is part of the ethics certification requirements for several organizations, I would like to continue our journey with a general discussion of ethics as it relates to conflict of interest. So how would you define ethics? I prefer this definition: a system of accepted beliefs that influence behavior, especially a system based on values and principles, and perceptions of right versus wrong. This definition focuses on values, principles, and perceptions, things that can be very different from person to person. Now, not all decisions are based in ethics. I'm wearing a red shirt today because it was on top of the pile, and its bright color appealed to me. These factors do not make that an ethics-based decision. It was simply a decision. An ethical issue arises when a person's actions may harm or benefit others. A subset of ethical issues are ethical dilemmas. These occur when you must do option A or option B, but you cannot do both, and options A and B have different effects on different people. Now let's take an example. Suppose a conference must be held in either Halifax or Vancouver. Halifax is cheaper, with equal facilities, but the Vancouver facility would support your parents' business. You can see our conference does present a conflict of interest. However, it also presents a situation where options A and B have different effects on different people. Thus, conflicts of interest can be seen as ethical dilemmas. So conflict of interest can be an ethical dilemma. But not all dilemmas are conflicts of interest. Take our conference example, but rework it, so that your parents have no interest in the conference, and you are not going yourself. So what interest would be in conflict? If you have no interest in the outcome, there is no conflict of interest. So what are some examples of real-life conflicts of interest? One is the Ontario Greenbelt controversy, which involved opening up to development areas previously reserved for nature. This raised accusation of government authorities trying to do developer friends a favor. Another is Prime Minister Trudeau vacationing for free at the Aga Khan's private Caribbean island. This raised accusations of accepting expensive gifts from someone who does business with the government. Lastly, we have athlete doping being managed by their own countries and organizations. This results in constant distrust that some countries cover up doping in the interest of improving their athletes' chances. Why should we bother about conflict of interest? Is conflict of interest really all that important? Well, by managing conflict of interest, we prevent the use of power or information for personal gain. We maintain or improve public confidence and support. We improve efficiency and effectiveness. We maintain or improve staff morale. As one company has said, employees must do more than merely act within the law. They must act in such a manner that their conduct will bear the closest scrutiny, should circumstances demand that it be examined. Not only actual conflicts of interest, but the very appearance of conflict should be avoided. Now, is having a conflict of interest wrongdoing? No. Conflict of interest is not, in and of itself, wrongdoing. It is a situation, and a situation that can arise through no fault of the person in conflict. For example, thinking of our conference example, the choice of venue may be thrust upon you, and you have no option but to carry out the assignment. Did you do wrong by carrying out your legitimate having a conflict of interest does not automatically mean that you will act improperly or resolve the conflict to your personal advantage rather than your employer's. The issue is that if you are in a position of conflicting interests, you are subject to temptation, however you resolve the issue. And that temptation breeds suspicion and distrust. Thus, the concept that perceived conflict of interest is the important issue. We will discuss this idea in greater detail later. Let's talk about a personal conflict of interest. Suppose you are in a position where you have access to very critical business information that would greatly help competitors. Is it a conflict to have as a close personal friend a senior director at a competing company? And what if your friend is simply a supervisor or a janitor? Is that a conflict of interest? Let's talk about rights here. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms says that everyone has the freedom of association. If certain friendships impact conflict of interest decisions, does that mean that managing conflict of interest could violate my charter rights? This is an unsettled point right now that I will leave you to think about. So what should we do when making decisions? Well, we should disregard factors that are not intrinsic to the issue. If I am selecting which cars to buy, I should concentrate on capital cost, maintenance, and safety, rather than whether my brother-in-law will get a big commission. With that short discussion about conflict of interest and ethics, I invite you now to move to Module 3, where we will discuss definitions of conflict of interest.